The Egyptian pyramids are ancient masonry structures located in Egypt. Sources cite at least 118 identified Egyptian pyramids. 1 and 2, approximately 80 pyramids were built within the Kingdom of Kush, now located in the modern country of Sudan. Of those located in modern Egypt, most were built as tombs for the country's pharaohs and their consorts during the Old and Middle Kingdom periods. 3, 4, 5, the earliest known Egyptian pyramids are found at Saqqara, northwest of Memphis, although at least one step pyramid-like structure has been found at Saqqara, dating to the First Dynasty, Mastaba 3808, which has been attributed to the reign of Pharaoh Anajib, with inscriptions and other archaeological remains of the period, suggesting there may have been others. 6. The otherwise earliest among these is the Pyramid of Djoser built c. 2630–2610 BCE, during the Third Dynasty. 7. This pyramid, and its surrounding complex, are generally considered to be the world's oldest monumental structures constructed of dressed masonry. 8. The most famous Egyptian pyramids are those found at Giza, on the outskirts of Cairo. Several of the Giza pyramids are counted among the largest structures ever built. 9. The Pyramid of Khufu is the largest Egyptian pyramid. It is the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still in existence, despite its being the oldest wonder by about 2,000 years. 10. Name U23G17, R024 Unicode. Pyramid Egyptian hieroglyphs. The name for a pyramid in Egyptian is MYR, written with symbol 024 in the Gardner sign list. MYR is preceded by 3 other signs used as phonetics. The meaning of MYR is unclear, as it only self-references the built object itself. By contrast, architecture of similar function like temple, PKA, is a compound of house and soul. It has been speculated MYR belongs to a class of words like Jed and Ankh, which refer to objects already in existence when the Egyptian language split off from Afroasiatic. A typical translation of MYR is given as high place. By graphical analysis, MYR uses the same sign, O24, as Ben-Ben. The Ben-Ben is the mound of existence that rose out of the abyss, Nun, in the Egyptian creation myth. The relationship between MYR and Ben-Ben is further linked by the capstone architectural element of pyramids and obelisks, which was named Benbenet, the feminine form of Ben-Ben. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were the fabled gardens which beautified the capital of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, built by its greatest king Nebuchadnezzar II, r. 605 to 562 BCE. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, they are the only wonder whose existence is disputed amongst historians. Some scholars claim the gardens were not in Babylon, but actually at Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire, while others stick with the ancient writers and await archaeology to provide positive proof. Still others believe the gardens are merely a figment of the ancient imagination. Archaeology at Babylon itself and ancient Babylonian texts are silent on the matter, but ancient writers describe the gardens as if they were Nebuchadnezzar's capital and still in existence in Hellenistic times. The exotic nature of the gardens compared to the more familiar Greek items on the list and the mystery surrounding their location and disappearance have made the Hanging Gardens of Babylon the most captivating of all the seven wonders. Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar II. Babylon, located about 80 kilometers, 50 miles, south of modern Baghdad in Iraq, was an ancient city with a history of settlement dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. The greatest period in the city's history was in the 6th century BCE, during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, when the city was the capital of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The empire had been founded by Nebuchadnezzar's father Nabopolassar, r. 625 to 605 BCE, after his victories over the Assyrian Empire. Nebuchadnezzar II would go on to even greater things, including the capture of Jerusalem in 597 BCE. The Babylonian king then set about making his capital one of the most splendid cities in the world. The Ishtar Gate was built c. 575 BCE, with its fine towers and depictions in tiles of animals both real and imaginary. A 7 to 20 kilometers brick double wall surrounded the city, the largest ever built, and then, possibly, he added the extensive pleasure gardens whose fame spread throughout the ancient world. The Temple of Artemis, or Artemis Ion, Greek, Turkish, Artemis Tapna, also known as the Temple of Diana, was a Greek temple dedicated to an ancient, local form of the goddess Artemis, identified with Diana, a Roman goddess. It was located in Ephesus, near the modern town of Selçuk in present-day Turkey. By 401 AD it had been ruined or destroyed. One and only foundations and fragments of the last temple remain at the site. The earliest version of the temple, a Bronze Age temenos, antedated the Ionic immigration by many years. Callimachus, in his hymn to Artemis, attributed it to the Amazons. In the 7th century BC, it was destroyed by a flood. Its reconstruction, in more grandiose form, began around 550 BC, under Chersophron, the Cretan architect, and his son Metagenes. The project was funded by Croesus of Lydia, and took 10 years to complete. This version of the temple was destroyed in 356 BC by an arsonist. The next, greatest, and last form of the temple, funded by the Ephesians themselves, is described in Antipater of Sidon's list of the world's 7 wonders. I have set eyes on the wall of lofty Babylon, on which is a road for chariots, and the statue of Zeus by the Alpheus, and the Hanging Gardens, and the Colossus of the Sun, and the huge labor of the high pyramids, and the vast tomb of Mausolus. But when I saw the house of Artemis that mounted to the clouds, those other marvels lost their brilliancy, and I said, Lo, apart from Olympus, the sun never looked on aught so grand. 2. Location and history. Imaginary Temple of Artemis, 16th century hand-colored engraving by Martin Heemskerk. The fame of the Temple of Artemis was known in the Renaissance, as demonstrated in this imagined portrayal of the temple in a 16th century hand-colored engraving by Martin Heemskerk. The Temple of Artemis, Artemis Ion, was located near the ancient city of Ephesus, about 75 kilometers, 47 miles, south from the modern port city of Izmir, in Turkey. Today the site lies on the edge of the modern town of Selçuk. The sacred site, Temenos, at Ephesus was far older than the Artemis Ion itself. Pausanias was certain that it antedated the Ionic immigration by many years, being older even than the oracular shrine of Apollo at Didyma. 3. He said that the pre-Ionic inhabitants of the city were Leleges and Lydians. Callimachus, in his hymn to Artemis, attributed the earliest temenos at Ephesus to the Amazons, legendary warrior women, whose religious practice, he imagined, already centered upon an image of Artemis, their matron goddess. Pausanias believed that the temple predated the Amazons. 4. Pausanias's estimation of the site's antiquity seems well-founded. Before World War I, site excavations by David George Hogarth seemed to identify 3 successive temple buildings. Re-excavations in 1987 to 88 and reappraisal of Hogarth's account 5 confirmed that the site was occupied as early as the Bronze Age, with a sequence of pottery finds that extend forward to Middle Geometric times, when a peripteral temple with a floor of hard-packed clay was constructed in the second half of the 8th century BC. 6. The peripteral temple at Ephesus offers the earliest example of a peripteral type on the coast of Asia Minor, and perhaps the earliest Greek temple surrounded by colonnades anywhere. In the 7th century BC, a flood at 7 destroyed the temple, depositing over half a meter of sand and flotsam over the original clay floor. Among the flood debris were the remains of a carved ivory plaque of a griffin and the Tree of Life, apparently North Syrian, and some drilled tear-shaped amber drops of elliptical cross-section. These probably once dressed a wooden effigy, Zoannon, of the Lady of Ephesus, which must have been destroyed or recovered from the flood. Bammer notes that though the site was prone to flooding, and raised by silt deposits about 2 meters between the 8th and 6th centuries, and a further 2.4 m between the 6th and the 4th, its continued use indicates that maintaining the identity of the actual location played an important role in the sacred organization. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was a giant seated figure, about 12.4 meters 41 feet tall, one made by the Greek sculptor Phidias around 435 BC at the sanctuary of Olympia, Greece, and erected in the temple of Zeus there. Zeus is the sky and thunder god in ancient Greek religion, who rules as king of the gods of Mount Olympus. The statue was a chryselephantine sculpture of ivory plates and gold panels on a wooden framework. Zeus sat on a painted cedar wood throne ornamented with ebony, ivory, gold, and precious stones. It was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The statue was lost and destroyed before the end of the 5th century AD, with conflicting accounts of the date and circumstances. The Colossus of Rhodes, Ancient Greek, Romanized, Ho Kolossos Rhodios Greek, Romanized, Kolossos tes Rhodou, A, was a statue of the Greek sun god Helios, erected in the city of Rhodes, on the Greek island of the same name, by Ches of Lindos in 280 BC. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, it was constructed to celebrate the successful defense of Rhodes city against an attack by Demetrius Poliorcetes, who had besieged it for a year with a large army and navy. According to most contemporary descriptions, the Colossus stood approximately 70 cubits, or 33 meters, 108 feet, high, approximately the height of the modern Statue of Liberty from feet to crown, making it the tallest statue in the ancient world. 2. It collapsed during the earthquake of 226 BC, although parts of it were preserved. In accordance with a certain oracle, the Rhodians did not build it again. 3. John Malalas wrote that Hadrian in his reign re-erected the Colossus. 4. But he was mistaken. 5. According to the Suda, the Rhodians were called Colossians, because they erected the statue on the island. 6. In 653, an Arab force under Muslim general Muawiyah I conquered Rhodes, and according to the Chronicle of Theophanes the Confessor. 7. The statue was completely destroyed and the remains sold. Winking Sad Smiley. 8. This account may be unreliable. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, or Tomb of Mausolus, Abe, Ancient Greek, Turkish, Halicarnas Mausolisi, was a tomb built between 353 and 350 BC in Halicarnassus, present Bodrum, Turkey, for Mausolus, an Anatolian from Caria and a satrap in the Achaemenid Empire, and his sister wife Artemisia II of Caria. The structure was designed by the Greek architects Satyros and Pythias of Priene. 1 and 2. Its elevated tomb structure is derived from the tombs of neighboring Lycia, a territory Mausolus had invaded and annexed c. 360 BC, such as the Nereid monument. 3. The mausoleum was approximately 45 meters, 148 feet in height, and the 4 sides were adorned with sculptural reliefs, each created by one of 4 Greek sculptors, Leochares, Bryaxis, Scopas of Paros, and Timotheus. 4. The mausoleum contained total 400 freestanding sculptures. 5. The mausoleum was considered to be such an aesthetic triumph that Antipater of Sidon identified it as one of his 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was destroyed by successive earthquakes from the 12th to the 15th century, winking sad smiley 6, 7, 8. It was the last surviving of the 6 destroyed wonders. The word mausoleum has now come to be used generically for an above-ground tomb. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, sometimes called the Pharos of Alexandria, FIS, Ancient Greek, Contemporary Koine Greek pronunciation, Hopa with acute. Ros TSA. Lek. Sandras, was a lighthouse built by the Ptolemaic Kingdom of ancient Egypt, during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, 280 to 247 BC. 2. It has been estimated to have been at least 100 meters, 330 feet, in overall height. 3. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, for many centuries it was one of the tallest man-made structures in the world. The lighthouse was severely damaged by 3 earthquakes between 956 and 1323 AD, and became an abandoned ruin. It was the 3rd longest surviving ancient wonder, after the mausoleum at Halicarnassus and the extant Great Pyramid of Giza, surviving in part until 1480, when the last of its remnant stones were used to build the citadel of Kakebe on the site. In 1994, a team of French archaeologists dug into the water of Alexandria's eastern harbour and discovered some remains of the lighthouse on the sea floor. 4. In 2016, the Ministry of State of Antiquities in Egypt had plans to turn submerged ruins of ancient Alexandria, including those of the Pharos, into an underwater museum.